Kyle Matthews spent the entire fall talking about the Beatitudes. I hope you were there. If you didn't, you missed it. I've got about 10 minutes this morning. He spent all fall, and he is still talking about the Sermon on the Mount on Wednesday nights at our worship time and fellowship time. Do yourself a favor. Come and eat and get to know some folks that you don't know very well maybe. Strengthen some relationships here on Wednesday nights. There's always some good singing and Kyle preaching. What could be better than that? So see you on Wednesdays. And Whitney, thank you for your comments too, wherever you are. Thank you so much. Jesus began his ministry, and before long, great crowds began to amass. The scriptures tell us that at one point Jesus left the crowd and climbed a hillside, and his disciples went with him. And he began with these words. We know them as the Beatitudes, the blessings. Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are those who mourn, for they shall be comforted. Many of you, I expect, know that some versions of the Bible use the word happy instead of the word blessing. And this is a valid translation. It is perfectly acceptable to say, happy are the meek, for they will inherit the earth. Happy are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they will be filled. And on it goes. But you may be less familiar with another word that biblical scholars also say is an accurate and perfectly acceptable translation for the word that we ordinarily translate as blessing. And that word, believe it or not, is congratulations. Congratulations. I've always pictured Jesus delivering the Beatitudes in hushed tones, like a commentator at a golf tournament describing a professional golfer getting ready to make an important putt. Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Well, is it possible that Jesus sounded more like a coach pumping up the team moments before a big game? Congratulations to the pure in heart, for they will see God. Congratulations to the peacemakers, for they will be called the children of God. Biblical scholars say that the Beatitudes were exclamations from Jesus. One referred to these blessings as forceful, ecstatic utterances from Jesus. This is new for me. I've never thought of it this way before, and for some reason, this insight has become very important to me. From what scholars say, there's reason to believe that when Jesus was teaching his disciples up on that hillside, he was exuberant, full of unrestrained enthusiasm and joy. More than one biblical scholar says that the Beatitudes are joyful, ecstatic utterances from Jesus. Now that's how C. Dan Joyner used to speak to us all the time. And don't we miss C. Dan? Ecstatic utterances. That's how Dr. Vivian Hamilton addresses the choir. But I never thought of Jesus speaking in ecstatic utterances. In my mind's eye, I have no trouble picturing Jesus weeping at the death of Lazarus or crying over Jerusalem. I have no trouble picturing Jesus speaking in a calm and serious tone like a philosopher of religion. I can definitely picture Jesus being angry as he chases away the money changers in the temple. But I have never, ever thought of Jesus speaking with great enthusiasm and joy. Have you? There's a verse where Jesus is quoted as saying, I have said these things so that my joy may be in you and your joy may be complete. And I've always imagined Jesus saying it this way, I have said these things so that my joy may be in you and your joy may be complete. Very serious. What's going on here? And what's it got to do with us? Well, one thing we know for sure. Jesus grew up hearing the story. He knew it well. The people of Israel, God's chosen people, we're suffering now, but God hears our prayers and God will deliver us. Like every good Jew, Jesus grew up hearing the story. Sometime in the distant future, God is going to make everything all right. Sometime in the distant future, every valley shall be lifted up and every mountain and hill be made low. The uneven ground shall become level and the rough places a plain. The glory of the Lord shall be revealed and all people shall see it together, for the mouth of the Lord has spoken. It's off there somewhere. Jesus knew the promise of the coming of God's kingdom, and he was taught that it would surely arrive sometime in the future. But Jesus came to believe that the long-awaited kingdom was dawning. Jesus, sitting on top of the hillside with a small group who had already surrendered everything to follow him, and his message to them was, in effect, the reign of God, the rule of God that we have been praying for is actually happening right here all around us. We're living in it now. We are participating in it right now. And here's what it looks like. When we let go of our pride, when we get a little less full of ourselves and make room for God, that's what a world full of God looks like. And when we discover how meaningless a life centered on obtaining possessions can be, that's what a world full of God looks like. When we stop judging people by their outward appearance, God's will and purpose is awakening at that very moment. In the beginning, God. In the end, God. But even in these in-between times, there is light and hope. There are moments of comfort for those who mourn and glimpses of grace for the pure in heart. Jesus believed the kingdom of God was dawning. No wonder he was excited. How does this matter to us? How does this make any difference in our lives as we try to follow Jesus? Life can be incredibly difficult. We all know that. It can be harsh and cruel at times. And the heartaches that we experience can chip away our sense of well-being and can strip us from any experience of pure joy. It's no wonder we spend so much time and so much money pursuing little flashes of happiness here and there. We're slow learners. We keep trying new things and going new places and buying new things to add to our piles of stuff. And we do know how to have a good time. There's no doubt about that. We specialize in manufacturing fleeting pleasures, but we end up missing out on lasting joy. So here's the question. How would our lives be different if we saw, as Jesus saw, if we saw every act of kindness, every little expression of goodness and generosity as a demonstration of what a world full of God looks like? Wouldn't that bring us a sense of hope and peace and joy? What if we came to see that stepping away from arrogance and pride and selfishness, and stepping toward humility, purity of heart. That was a way of bringing in the kingdom of God. What if we came to believe that the touch of God's hand was in every expression of grace? Every movement toward forgiveness and reconciliation. What if we saw every action that we took in terms of caring for the poor as a way of filling the world with God's loving presence? Wouldn't that give us a renewed sense of hope and meaning and purpose and joy? And what about our church? Wouldn't it give our church family a renewed sense of meaning and direction and enthusiasm and joy to know that as we live out our mission, our calling, and as we care for those in our community and beyond, and as we engage in the work of transformation, and as we stand with those who are oppressed and mistreated, and stand against the out-of-whack priorities in our world, that we are revealing what a world full of God looks like. Someone might say to us, "Congratulations." Jesus might say, "Bless you. You are on the path to happiness now. Congratulations." Until now, my picture of Jesus never included imagining him as an enthusiastic and joyful person. But Jesus saw God's presence, God's activity in the world in a whole new way. Not just as a hope for the distant future, but as a present reality, day to day. It's taking place right here and right now, and we are all part of it. We are part of bringing to bear what God has in mind for all God's children, and it is happening right here and right now. Jesus invites us to this table. And Jesus also invites us not to wait for the revealing of God's kingdom, but to live in it right here and now. Not only will we be blessed, we already are.